Do not make any investment decision upon any materials found on this video. We are not registered as securities broker, dealer, or investment advisor in any jurisdiction or country. We are neither licensed nor qualified to provide investment advice. Information provided on this video is general in nature and does not constitute financial advice. All in Stocks does not accept any liability for any error or omission on this video or for any resulting loss or damage suffered by the recipient or any other person. My guest today is the great Sean Iddings. Sean is the co-author of the book The Intelligent Fanatics Project. He's also a blogger, a real estate photographer, and an accomplished investor. A couple of weeks ago, Sean posted his highest conviction idea, which is eXp World Holdings, a real estate brokerage company growing at more than 100% year on year, so amazing growth. And when I read his post, I knew I had to research the company, and I knew I had to talk to Sean. So that's the conversation I'm bringing you today. Before we go to Sean, if you want to gain access to all my research on eXp, head over to allinstocks.com. And for the price of 2 mojitos, just 2 mojitos, you can gain access to all my research on eXp and to my top picks right now. So without further ado, here's Sean. Sean Iddings, thank you very much for accepting my invitation.
Thank you, Manuel. Very good to see you again. It's been a little while since we chatted, but I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing very well, thank you. You too?
Thank you. Yes. Keeping very occupied with my business.
So I think that's why you discovered eXp in the first place. That's my first question to you after reading your write-up. I was like, how did you find it? So how did you find it, Sean?
So I of course run a real estate photography business. So I've been getting to know the real estate industry quite a bit. And not only that, my wife was a real estate agent from 2019 until probably about a month ago, because she just didn't really see that she liked it. So I got to know the industry from an agent's perspective from her, but also, just me working with my clients and just understanding, exactly the ins and outs of what happens in a transaction and such. And so I actually saw some agents, not in my area, but outside of my area, we're getting into, different companies like Redfin. You hear Zillow all the time because you're looking at listings and stuff. And so I've just been curious about what the entire industry, including brokerages, entailed. Like I said, because my wife was working for kind of like a traditional-ish brick and mortar type franchise brokerage company. So I know what it was like from her side. And then a friend of mine, Matthew, he's known me for a while, and he knew that I wrote about the Intelligent Fanatics Project kind of stuff. And I think probably last year, he sent me, like check out this guy, because he's been in eXp for a number of years, and so he's talked with, I think, or was going to talk directly with Sanford, a long time ago, and all that stuff. And he said, it's really interesting opportunity, and I just kind of like passed on it because like I'm busy building my business. I read a little bit of some of the things that he sent, and like looking at valuation, I was just like, yeah, whatever. But now, as I've kind of matured a little bit in my business and my understanding of the industry, I started to look at that opportunity and just start digging a bit more into what it is. Because the first thing you look at, you see a company, it's what I wrote in the post that I did, that it's MLM, multi-level marketing company, looks really seedy at first glance. And I think that's why a lot of investors look at it and kind of dismiss it. And I dismissed eXp in 2017 when it was posted on Microcap Club. And I remember exactly where I was when I looked at it, which is odd because I don't remember too many things quite clearly. I was at a library, and this was 2017, so I was like working on Intelligent Fanatics, probably second book, and building out the website that we created. I just remember I was at the library. I saw the the, write up, and I'm like, yeah, what? I didn't understand the industry. I didn't understand really anything. And so it was quickly thrown in my too hard pile because I thought, okay, well, here's Zillow and they're, huge company. And, uh, I just didn't really understand anything. And I think a lot of people within the community, they similarly dismissed it pretty quickly because there was virtually no, responses. There's maybe like less than one page on the form. And the company went from however many cents it was back then. It was probably well over 10 bag or 20 bag or something like that, some ridiculous number. And the number of posts to return was ridiculously low, which I think a lot of people mentioned. They're like, oh my God, like, what happened? And so just seeing that there was an opportunity and a lot of people passed it up. And I think currently that's a similar situation. It's bigger, more people kind of looking at it. And so I just saw that there was an opportunity, and I just wanted to learn as much as I could. And as I did so, I just started seeing some very interesting, insights, and not really insights from my cognitive part of my brain, but just subconsciously, a lot of the things that I've read and learned from other, previous companies and some of the better companies in previous past. That's what kind of perked my interest, and then I just started to really dig deep, over like a 2-week period, trying to guzzle as much information as I could from, anybody and any source, and that's where I came up with the idea. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not maybe not my best idea. Who knows what happens to it from here.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think it was something that was within my current wheelhouse, my competence. And I just think that a lot of people are overlooking some, important facets, that being like the incentives. And a lot of people see the real estate industry, they see agents, and they just, for some reason, agents have gotten a bad rap because, there's some seedy ones out there. But they're, just me being in the industry and seeing the level of service and value that a lot of these individuals create, I think giving them a platform to help empower them, I think could really help with the disruptive nature, because a lot of people see technology as being a replacement for all of, pretty much the whole real estate transaction. And I don't see that as coming to fruition as much as people hope. And I don't know why people hope to, get rid of, 2 million jobs, really entrepreneurs. I think there's just a new way that it should be done. And I think the value is less in the brokerage, which it has been in the past. And maybe I can talk about that a little bit more if you want to.
Exactly. That's what I was going for. Explain how the traditional brokerage business works, and then how eXp is different from that traditional model.
So from what I understand, okay, so I wasn't born, in 1920 or 1950. So from what I understand, what it used to be, and I'll kind of go back then and kind of walk through as best I can the transformations that have happened in the industry to make it where it's at right now. And then maybe I can see, flesh out where it could be in the future, because of course, there's going to be tons of different probabilities, but at least in the US, if you go back to like the dawn of the real estate industry, majority of it was hyper localized, of course, because the transfer of knowledge, and even back then the automobile was just, in its infancy. So traveling between large distances wasn't as big. So you have a hyper localized business, and it's usually, the broker would be somebody who had a huge network of people within the local area, and they would have established an office, and they would shake their network tree as much as possible to get listings. Okay. And so then they would have the listings, and then everybody who wanted to buy or sell a house would have to come to this brokerage and to get the information, because there's no internet, there's no MLS back then. There were literally nothing. So to go and get information, you literally had to go to an office, you had to speak with them, and they would show you their listings. And the thing is, each brokerage, there might be a couple in a town, I don't know, you'd have to go from brokerage to brokerage to see all the listings. And so that was a pain point for people. But to literally get foot traffic coming in, an agent would have to, well, step back a little bit. So you have a brokerage, they have the listings, they have the people coming in for buying houses, and then they have to start subcontracting to agents, to help them keep up with all of the business happening. So the agents, okay, help out with that. And so you see there's lots of different parts of the industry, and people need to come to a specialized place to do the business. Okay, then the MLS comes along, and it's this printed out book once or twice a month, and it's distributed between the brokerages, and that's just to help with keeping the information within, but still
MLS is multiple listing service, right?
Right. Yeah, multiple listing service. So you have now kind of like a Bible that people need to see to get any access of the information. And where do you get that? You have to go to a brokerage. Okay. And so there was search costs, and to do anything, you literally have to go into the brokerage. And so agents, benefited, the brokerages mainly benefited from having tons of foot traffic coming into their brokerages, because that's literally where the information was. And they, brokerages and the agents held the MLS as a Bible, because it's literally their huge value proposition.
It was like the yellow pages for real estate.
Well, yeah, but yeah, it's like even more holy than the yellow pages, because nobody else could get it. Okay, mm-hmm. So you had to go to the brokerages to get that information. And then the 90s come around, then you have websites popping up and a little bit of information from the MLS trickling out, but still it's more of it wasn't a big time. And then you get to mid 2000s, and then you have the MLS information being sent out via these information websites. So all of the searching costs going directly to brokerages, that foot traffic going there, is pretty much gone. Okay. And so if you go into a real estate brokerage office now, you literally see nobody in there, but maybe an admin person, a manager, and maybe a couple agents, if that. Okay. So agents now are kind of getting to the point where, okay, what value does a brokerage bring me? No longer is the Bible anything valuable. Now it's more of like a social kind of connection with the other agents. But then again, with that, brokerage, they don't have any kind of ownership with the agents, So it's, if you're going to meet your other cohort agent within your office, they're technically competition. And there's really no reason why you should be, working together. And so it's a very zero-sum kind of environment that the real estate industry has had. And so coming to like eXp, where now people are, incentivized with stock. Now they're incentivized with, revenue share and, recruiting other agents and helping, not only just recruiting them, getting a one-time payment, but getting, in perpetuity, some kind of royalty from helping, that agent to expand their business, to do well, to make more transactions. Now you start seeing, okay, now it's flipped. Now it's not zero sum. Now it's actually positive sum, where we are trying to help each other, help the whole organization,
I was about to ask you to please expand on the exact terms that the traditional brick and mortar brokerage offers the agent, and what does eXp offer
Okay.
to incentivize them to do all of that you were mentioning.
So it depends on what kind of traditional brick and mortar, but the split being the amount of commission split between the agent and the brokerage ranges, but it's quite on the higher side. It's 50%, 40%, something like that going to the brokerage, the rest going to the agent. There might be desk fees. Desk fees meaning, just think of it like a monthly fee to have, an office in their brick and mortar place. There might be lots of other, smaller fees that they have to pay. And like I said, it ranges, but it's generally a bit more expensive because you have a network of brick and mortar, offices to pay for. You have managers, you have this, that, and another to pay
You
for.
have franchising fees as well.
Franchising fees, yeah, you name it, depending on what model you're talking about or what company. There's quite a bit of fees. And so now you have a company coming in here, that being eXp, where it's considered a cloud brokerage. And a lot of people think, oh, well, everything done in the cloud. Well, it's cloud just in the sense that it's pretty much remote. So there's no brick and mortar. Uh, Very few off. I think there's like one headquarters office, maybe like a couple others. But that's it. And what they're trying to do is trying to build the the all the things that a brokerage should provide, which is the education, the support, the administration, kind of the back end kind of stuff in the cloud, in a virtual space, kind of like a Second Life. It's like a campus, and it looks kind of hokey pokey right now in terms of graphics, but I think people aren't really seeing the actual value. Actual value being, so take for instance my wife. When she was a realtor, she was trying to, do it part time, stay at home with our daughter, and then, as she could, try to build up her business. But the whole fact that she had to go to the office to, do meetings, mandatory meetings that really didn't have that much information, but there was other ones she would like to have done, but because they were, 30-minute drive away, and she had to watch my daughter, or just trying to figure out scheduling, was a huge pain point. And for her, that probably could have been a big reason why it didn't pick up the way she wanted it to. But she found out she didn't want to do it anyway. The whole business wasn't for her. But just that right there is a huge pain point for an agent, like I said, especially some of the part-time who are just starting out on that type of stuff. Now, putting it online and having it 24/7 and having it very accessible from any kind of location is a huge, it doesn't matter what the graphics look like, just having the ability to learn as you want, with the internet, YouTube, whatever. It's amazing for anybody to learn anything. But now putting that into the cloud and allowing agents to do that is very beneficial. So that's one of the good benefits. But so you have less cost with brick and mortar. So now eXp says, okay, well, if we want to give you more for less, so our split would be 20%, you take 80%, and once you hit $16,000 in commission that you pay to eXp, then you take 100% minus transaction fees, which range $250 to begin, and then $75 after like $5,000 cap on that. So it's, in essence, it's just a cheaper way for an agent to operate. And I think the platform and system and incentives are set up in a way where it's win-win, instead of trying to fight everybody for more business.
Mm-hmm. So the cloud allows it, or not having physical spaces allows it to compensate agents in a better way. And I believe that's why agents are flocking in huge numbers to eXp. what did you say that you mentioned that for especially for young agents or new agents going to the shop or to the store or to the agency is kind of a pain in the ass and all of that. But I've heard the opposite, that this is a good model for experienced agents who need less holding hands, right? And already know what to do. And then young agents, or I mentioned young, but new agents need a little bit more holding hands and talking to other fellow agents who have been working on this for for longer. And that this platform attracts the highest performing agents, and it will attract the other ones as well. But soon there's a lot of them then that understand that they need that water cooler talk with their friends or with their colleagues, although you mentioned their competition. How do you see that?
So in terms of who the type of what type of agents that the model attracts, it ranges. And what I would gather that it would, attract some of the bigger ones, because now you're getting a better split, you're getting revenue share, and you're getting a system that allows you to attract people in not only your local, regional, national, but also international uh, stage. Because now with the model, it allows people to expand pretty much wherever, because you don't need the office. It's all done virtually, and so you're pretty much shown that it's possible. And for any of the support, it's done internationally, or done in the cloud, which allows that international component. And as it expands into different locations, now you're getting more international, languages that they support, and such. So I think it's just attractive on that standpoint with some of the big players who are doing big business, but are also hungry to grow. But it also does attract, some of the ones that, like I said, are kind of like part-timers who see the value in having a 24/7 online broker that allows you to study, do things on your own time. Whereas even some of the other brokerages that are considered cloud brokerages might not have, the virtual campus and all that type of stuff. They might just be doing straight video. So it's a bit more interactive and a little bit more social than some of the other ones that might even be slightly cheaper, such as like Fathom or Real Brokerage or any of the other ones. So it's kind of the situation where they've figured out, they were kind of the first ones to do the cloud brokerage right, or the best. And from there, there's been some new entrants that have come in that kind of do it their own way and try to perform, at least in, giving out commission than eXp. But eXp is still gotten the most scale, which is probably the hardest thing in this kind of brokerage online cloud model, which is, it's quite easy to set up, but anything with the internet, the barriers to entry are ridiculously easy, but the barriers to scale are ridiculously hard. And for instance, I might give, like if you want to be a YouTuber, if you were early on and you really hustle and you've been consistent, you're starting to get to scale, 5-6 years on, currently than you were when you started. And then if you're trying now as a new entrant, it's really easy. You just buy a $400 camera and, sit down and you talk to it. But your barriers to scale are ridiculously hard now, because now you have, power laws working against you, where the algorithm is, feeding people to the big players, and they just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think it's the same thing. So a lot of people will say, well, it's really easy for, somebody to copy. Yeah, sure. But to, get that scale would be hard. And then, for instance, if you have one of the more traditional type brokerages, or even a Keller Williams, which has pretty much the same model as eXp, but with the brick and mortar, it's really, how on earth are they going to get rid of all of that, real estate, how are they going to transform their model from the brick and mortar to this cloud? And then try to catch up to where eXp is, I think is a very hard thing. And especially knowing the dynamics of how hard it is for a big stalwart company to change their model from something, the old way, the traditional way, to the new way without upsetting about everybody in the company. And so there's just so many reasons why it'd be actually really hard for somebody to change. Whereas you can just say, okay, well, if I want a better split, you're an agent, and I want it, to be more cloud, I'm just going to go to eXp. They're the best. They're already doing it. It's going to be easy peasy, unless you have some kind of contract set up with your business, some franchise contract. But so that's where I see a lot of it is easy for people to just move over to what's already working.
You've mentioned the competition, and if eXp already has such razor thin margins, I wonder how or what margins competition with better splits will get once they scale. What I've talked to a few agents, eXp agents. Most of them came from, or a couple of them came from Remax, which is the big boy.
Yep.
And there's all of this cloud business and the virtual world and all of that is all nice and good, but what I sense they're coming after is the better revenue split and the compensation scheme, the revenue share, which is like, as you mentioned, a multi-level marketing cascading compensation scheme. Whereas if you bring more people, you'll have a share, not of their revenue, but of the revenue that the company is getting. And I believe a lot of them are going at it really early. And I've talked to a few here in Portugal, and they're super interested in Brazil. One of them even showed me a Zoom call with 23 people in Brazil.
Wow.
And he was like hiring or bringing those people inside eXp.
Right.
Because for the first few guys in a country like Brazil, who afterwards will be how do you say, will be eating from the revenues that the other guys will bring.
Right.
It's major beneficial to them. So they're like there's an arms race here in Portugal for agents in Brazil right now. It's very cool.
Right.
I wonder how many zombie agents there is, or how many people are attracted to just passive income and don't even sell houses. Do you have any insights into that?
That's a very good question. And I don't know the exact number of agents that are just doing recruiting over doing actual transactions, but I'll tell you one thing. So I've tried to understand what exactly the revenue share model is within eXp. And it's interesting how they have it set up where you have to have a certain number of active agents within your downline to get the higher amount of revenue share. And I can share you one of the videos that I thought was a very good explanation on how to do it. And so I won't say it correctly because I watched it a few times and I don't know, I'm not an expert on it, but you have to have, from zero to 5 active agents, and they have a specific name for it. That person has to do at least, one transaction, and because it's based on a monthly kind of payment, you get paid monthly for revenue share. Your downline has to do, make at least one transaction in that 1 month period to be considered, part of your downline or active agent within your downline. Now, if those people within your downline aren't active within that month, you aren't given. So there's 2 tiers. There's one that I think it's called like an exponential revenue share, and the one that's, I don't remember what the other one's called, but it's hugely different. So if your downline is actually doing transactions, you're getting, like 3.5% or something like that on the first level of your downline. Now, if none of them, or maybe one, or whatever the number is, I think it's your second downline is when it starts kicking in. When, say there's 4 to 5 in your downline that are actually doing a transaction. Now you get down to your second level. And from there, then you either get like the 3.5 or whatever percent is, or you get like 0.2%. So I think the way they're trying to set up the model is to be less of that recruit to just make the top line agent number go up. I think they're trying to incentivize individuals to, okay, well, not only do I have to recruit, but I have to recruit somebody who's going to be active, and they have to be active in terms of transactions with the public, and then I'll get compensated more for that. So, what should I do? Should I, get the zombies who aren't doing anything, just have, a blood pressure in a heartbeat, or should I actually get the ones that are actually doing something and getting the people who actually provide to the company and, generate any kind of income or revenue?
I would say that's that goal is in the best interest of everyone, right? Because even the top guys, there's one guy, the machine gun, how is he called? One of the directors. A lot of the revenue share goes up to him. So
Right.
in revenue share, he earned 4 million, I guess, last year in 2020. So they're also incentivized. The top level management or directors are also incentivized to bring in or to help bring in the most productive agents. But that it would be interesting to know how many. I've seen some numbers for Keller Williams, how many zombie agents are the percentage of zombie agents, but I haven't seen it for eXp yet, and it would be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, but for me, I don't know the number, but I'm just trying to look at the incentive structure, and that can kind of lead you to, what it might be in the future, and just how things are acting. Because I'm sure it's, I don't know, 10, 15, 20%. Who knows? I have no clue. But there's
and transactions per agent are still growing. So even if there's a big number or whatever the number is, that's a good metric to follow or to track, which is the transaction per agent and the amount of not only the amount, but the dollar amount per agent is going up. Truth be told, the house prices in the US is going up as well. So it might be that the agents are becoming better at it, and the house prices are also going up. So it's a mix of two factors.
Well, one thing to note, Manuel, is that the agent transactions, transactions per agent is a really interesting kind of metric that I've found to be a little misleading to the fact that a lot of people will look at other competition and say, oh, well, Compass or some others that are acquiring agents, like $ acquiring, so they're paying money for them, they're able to bring all of that agent's transactions that are pending, everything, over immediately. So it's sort of like taking a company and acquiring another one, and then, bringing in pro forma all of their revenues, their profits, and all that type of stuff to make it look like it's better. eXp, on the other hand, is acquiring agents, but all of their pending transactions are still happening with the old brokerage. You can't count that. So it takes about 90 days from the new hire or the new acquisition of that agent to start hitting the books of, so it's whatever transaction per agent that you see now, it might say 59,000 agents, but for those 59,000 agents to show up fully in the company's books, you have to go out another quarter to see what they're doing. But by then they've already grown. So it's whatever you're seeing now in transactions and agents, it's actually a little skewed, especially if you're comparing with other competitors who are doing it a much different way.
And the great thing, and I've read this is not from the top of my head, it was not me who thought of it. that the customer acquisition cost is actually also the retention cost, which is tied to the revenue coming in. It's not like you mentioned Compass that is buying outright the agents and paying them to come to Compass. Here, the eXp only pays the agents who bring in the revenue. So it's kind of interesting. And another interesting thing is the more it grows, the lower its gross margin is. So that's super counterintuitive. And there's a lot of people online mentioning that, well, compare these guys' margins with the competition and all of that. And you'll see the competition with much higher margins. But as you mentioned on your write-up, this is the part that a lot of people just don't get at first, because it's counterintuitive that the more it grows or the more productive the agents, the lower the gross margin. That because of the cap, of course. That's pretty interesting.
Well, and the fact that the company, when they're talking with agents and trying to teach them how, about the company and about the financials, they're trying to also teach them that not only do we want to grow top line, more transactions, more agents, more transactions, but a big cost is that non-cash stock compensation, which they all, of course, love. Who wouldn't love that? So they're trying to teach them that, okay, you have this, but we also want our margins to go up as well. We want to be profitable on a GAAP basis. So how can we do that? They're, given the, this is how we do it. We have a higher capture rate in terms of our ancillary businesses. So now we start getting into, the mortgage, title, escrow, all that other stuff can, go straight to the bottom line. And I think also to keep in mind that a lot of the brick and mortar, they have tons of fixed costs, right? In terms of their real estate, in terms of their admin, because eXp is cloud, it's a bit more variable in terms of what their cost structure is. And so they can get to a point where, if there's a bad situation in the economy, the housing market, deflates from where it is, and it probably will eventually, and sometime soon, they will be able to adapt and, react much quicker than any of, a lot of the competition, especially the ones at their size. So that's a huge benefit. So not only, a lot of people start saying, well, if, agents are hitting cap, that's less money to eXp. Well, yeah, the margins of that will be less, but you have to also consider what else can they start selling? What else can they start doing to, increase the margins in the business and really start seeing the leverage that the company can get to.
They're entering they've entered the iBuying business as well with expressoffers.com. And if you see a Zillow or any other, you'll see that this part of the business is actually for the time being profitless, right? And Glenn, the CEO of eXp, has mentioned that they're not going to have the balance sheet risk. They're actually getting some other buyers to enter the iBuying business. He didn't talk a lot about that. There's a lot of videos, as you might know, of Glenn talking on YouTube, and I haven't watched them all, but I've watched some, and he didn't actually go deep on that. I noticed that he just didn't want to go deep on that, but he mentioned that he's getting deals with fix and flip companies like Wedgwood and rental companies, all of that. I'm not sure how. What I wanted to ask you is, all of those ancillary businesses that they're trying to get now, do you find that they will move the needle? Because the iBuying so far doesn't move the needle, or it's profitless. So I don't know if it's a scale business or whatever, but how everyone's hyped about the new things that will come. And I'm not sure if those new things are better than what's here already.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I don't have an opinion too much on the iBuying side because it's something I haven't looked into too much. And I think, I don't think really anybody knows where it's going to be going exactly in the next couple years. And I think coming from a conservative standpoint financially, where you don't want to tie up too much capital in that area, I think is probably a good idea, because
Yeah.
anytime you have, a problem that comes up, you have a recession, you have interest rates skyrocketing, the housing market's going to not be in a good position. And to be in a worse position is to be debt ridden. All of your capital is in somewhere else, in all of this housing inventory. So I think coming to the fact that Glenn is trying to do it in a way that's less capital risky is probably a good thing. But in terms of some of the other opportunities, them recently announcing that they're working with Glenn Stearns with Kind Lending, I think is wow. Like at first I had like not too much knowledge about, what Kind Lending did in the mortgage space, or who Glenn Stearns was, on what team that he's built, but just learning about him and what he's done with Stearns Lending LLC, back in the 80s, and building it up into one of the top mortgage lenders within the U.S. It says something. But not only that, the way that Glenn Stearns has operated, and how he's tried to start building this Kind Lending business, doing it again in that additive sum, focusing on employees and trying to create a totally different way of doing business within the mortgage lending space, I think is, right in line with what Glenn has done. And that's why they see eye to eye. And then bringing on this guy who's, another billionaire who's, really successful, but not successful just because he's been cutting other people's knees out. He's been successful because he's been creating, value for all stakeholders. I think is a wonderful addition. And then just think about, what are they going to do now? Well, now they can take their model and then put it into the mortgage lending space. Now think about, having a lender now is kind of incentivized in an eXp way, and then they work together. Who knows how they're going to create it and what it's going to look like exactly. But I just think that now we have another kind of not narrative, but growth driver or lever that nobody's really even thinking about, and just trying to help the people who are doing business now, so that being the agent, but not then it's being the mortgage lender, do their business and do it in a additive some way. I think starts to see a lot of disruption there, and then just helps everything grow as a whole. So that's where I think that it's really interesting to see, who knows what the capture rate is going to be, with all the eXp agents, with the ancillary businesses, but they're incentivized to do it better than other people. And they're not only incentivized to do that themselves, they're incentivized to get everybody doing that within their ecosystem. So I think the way that the ecosystem is evolving is in the right direction, and it's same right direction, not going downwards, which a lot of companies do.
On the mortgage business that you're mentioning, do you know what's it like right now? What will be like in the near future? Is it just a referral or origination kind of fee, or?
So yeah, there's generally the fee that's going on per transaction, and I've heard some, if you're talking mortgage, title, and all that kind of stuff, it's ranging from a couple thousand to 3,000 per transaction. And so just imagine that, pretty much going to the bottom line, per transaction. Whoo, that starts adding up real quick. So it's, I'm not an expert on that part of the equation, but again, like for me, I'm just trying to bet on, like an organization, bet on the leadership and the organization, just exceeding my expectations over time. And I think investing in the ones that create the systems where everybody thrives is one that, over the long term, exceeds expectations quite well.
Mm-hmm. You've mentioned Expel, and you have a pretty cool, how do you call that? It's not a sign, it's, what do you call that?
It's like a 3D wall art. I've been doing that. You can see like Warren Buffett there, Howard Marks, and mainly that just kind of came up. I have this office, and it looks nice inside when it's bare walls, but I wanted to be inspired when I came into my office, be surrounded by people that I look up to, and I just started making these, laser cutting them, painting them, and I found that other people, investors and others, have liked them, and so I've sold a few of them. I'm too busy with my, real estate photography business. It's summer. It's my peak season to do anything else, but eventually I'll start doing that probably in the slow time. But with this, I thought a lot of people poo-poo companies when they do bad, and they don't really celebrate companies when they do really well. I've made almost 100 times my investment on Expel, and I wanted to thank them. Like, come on, what can you do to thank a group, an organization of people for changing your life? They've literally changed my life, and they didn't do it directly. They didn't say like, "Oh, Sean, here's money." No, I invested with them because I believed in them, and the stock was it's a microcap stock. Nobody cared about it. They make plastic condoms for cars, but over time they've grown, they've done phenomenally well, and I hitching my sidecar to them have done well as well, and so I wanted to give back to them some way, and I'm doing this art stuff, so I said, well, why don't I make something that everybody can enjoy? And so I asked the CEO, like, what's the quote that you guys like? He said, "No tomorrow." It makes sense because they really just work their butts off, and they're just trying to do the best in the moment. So I came up with this mock-up. I put it on Twitter with a couple other different mock-ups, and people chose this one, the Expel shareholders, and I guess other people as well. And then I asked all of the shareholders, who have been in Expel, like, give me your name if you want to be on this. It's going to be your gift as well. And I have, you can't really see it, it's laser right there on like a piece of metal, all the names of people who wanted to, give the gift as well. And I'll be giving, I don't know how I'll give it to them, but
it would be great if you had the picture with the CEO handing him that.
Right, that would be nice. Yeah, so we'll see if
great.
I go down to San Antonio to give it to them. But regardless of how it's given to them, they'll have it, and I hope that they see that shareholders who are a stakeholder within the business, we really, really appreciate. And I think this should be done more often in the investment space. And shareholders stop poo-pooing the companies when they do bad. Like, these guys had some troubles. I tried to stick with them, try to give them value when I could, send books or like thoughts or something like that. And then when they do well, let's reward them. And then not only should they be, feel like respected by, an important part of business operations, that being shareholders, but they should be, encouraged to work harder and, just continually. And again, I go back to the additive sum kind of relationships. Let's stop, fighting with each other, and let's start, sharing the wealth and sharing all the greatness. And, over time, I think it just, it's a positive feedback loop that, feeds on itself and gets better and better with time.
It's great that you've compared eXp with Expel, and I've looked into Expel a few, like, I think a year ago or something like that. I went to one of their agents here in Portugal. They were super proud of being Expel agents and all of that, but I could never understand what was the juice behind it or the secret sauce. And that's my bad, not the business. And from what I understand, and you compare both, and you wrote Intelligent Fanatics, and you like to understand and to bet on the jockey, or said in another way, you put a lot of weight on the jockey that's driving the business you invest in. I find it. I agree with you, but I find it harder. How do you see the managers here, and specifically Glenn Stanford? How do you see them? And I've sent you these, the part of everyone's looking for an owner operator, right? Everyone's looking to invest with the founders, but at some point it can be harmful for small investors. How do you see it?
Excuse me. Good question. Just to kind of back up on your kind of setup where you're saying that I've looked at Expel and leadership is a huge component of my kind of style. And a lot of people don't see it, but I think the leadership component of it, and less of people, when you say jockey, that kind of it connotes that the horse is the business and the jockey's this some little teeny guy that's on top of it, really not doing much, right? In my mind, though, I don't really have an analogy on the top of my head, but I see the leader as one of the most
the architect.
It's the architect, like underappreciated parts of a business. And the way they architect that business is hugely important. And one thing that I've loved to do is just look at other leaders in other fields. Because I think when you think of a business and you think of an organization of people within a business, it's hard to really see the people component of it. All you see is the technology. All you see is the equipment. All you see is this thing in the sky that is X company. And it's really hard to see that the people component of it and that leadership component of it are huge. That is business, really. It's people. All it is people. Starts there, ends there. People. But I look at like how great leaders in other fields, such as like military, like John, like Patton, looking at different places, like in football, so sports, basketball, Red Auerbach, leader of the Boston Celtics, getting 9 NBA championships, 8 in a row. Ooh, he's doing something right. Okay, so looking at those different areas and how those leaders got those results. And those are much smaller organizations. So, with a basketball team, you're working with, 10 people, 9 people. Football, 11 people on the field at a time, like 52 overall. So there's a lot less people. But in business, you're getting to the thousands. So it's a lot harder to conceptualize that. But just seeing how those leaders and the ones who've done really well are very similar. They're not exactly the same. No. They're very similar, though, in the way they operate. Okay. And they rhyme a lot of similar things in how they communicate, how they delegate. So a lot of things that I, pointed out, like in the Intelligent Fanatics books. So they're very similar, but so not only are they similar within their different fields, they're similar with those business leaders that have done phenomenally well. And I think people just don't realize that the leadership component can be ridiculously valuable. And what those leaders architect, okay, thanks for the word, and build what kind of platform or what kind of situation or greenhouse or conditions to help these people thrive. And so I've really bet on that. And, go back to Expel, it's not exactly the same as eXp, but the way that, Ryan Pape and his management team have created a situation or conditions for their people to thrive. And you hear it. So you were talking with one of the, people over in Europe and how you're like, oh, it's a great company. Yeah. Well, you talk with any of the companies that have the conditions set in good ways, positive, additive in some ways, they're going to love it. And they're going to shout, from the rooftops about how good it is there. So that's where I see, eXp is not exactly the same, but they have it in a different way, which is, hitting on what real estate agents want. But in terms of, Glenn saying, he's not perfect. Nobody's ever perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm far from it. But the ones that you want to bet on, or the ones I've wanted to bet on, are the ones that, like I said, are creating those conditions for people to thrive, and the ones that are looking to always, improve, but improve not with huge, ridiculous bets, with tons of debt, but they're trying to make these, surefire sniper shots for bets, and bring on people who are very much like-minded. So like I said, when they announced the partnership, or pretty much acquiring Kind Lending with Glenn Stearns, you learn about him. Ooh, this is a guy I want to be doing business with, and I try to always back up into that question with myself. So would I want to, work with this person? Would they make my business better? Well, yeah, these guys, yeah, they'd make my business better. So of course they're going to make the other one better too. So I always personally ask myself, if I want, personally, would I want to be in business with these guys? And, they're not perfect. Sanford, he's got lots of stocks. He's getting stock ownership, stock options. He's selling, but he did a pause on his stock selling plan for a while. But those are the optically things that people will see and, just walk away from. But like I said, everything's got hair. Nobody's perfect. But what are some of the bigger attributes, core values that person has that you can align with? And I think, being an innovator, really big in visionary type of individual. And then, people will say, well, he might not be the best person. Yeah, sure. But what has he already created? He's created a system that was based on Keller Williams' system, but he's made it better. And he's made it better based on all the characteristics that make great companies, additive sum relationships. Once you do, he's shown that he can do it. He's going to make mistakes. Even Jeff Bezos makes mistakes. Warren Buffett makes mistakes. We all make mistakes. But has he shown, like, the 80% of the freight that he can create something that's useful to the world, valuable to the world? Well, he has so far. He's bringing on people who have created value in the past too. I'm betting that they create some value in the future.
Yeah, I get you. I totally get you. And my jockey. Well, I taken this from someone. The jockey analogy. I liked your architect analogy, but I'm still not there. As I've told you, I've been researching this company for a week now, since I reached out to you, and I've gone through the whole thing. Like, wow, this is amazing. This is freaking me out, because all the agents, you go on YouTube and you've got a lot of agents just selling the company instead of selling the houses, and they all talk like about the company like and it sounds like a cult or something. There's something there that I still got to wrap my head around it. And so I'm super skeptical at first, and then at some point, I'm not sure if it will happen with this company or not, I will not lose the forest for the trees. But I'm still on this side of on this part of the process. And one of those was yep was
you finish your thought.
Was because the CEO he together with his ex-wife and all that owns a big chunk of the shares outstanding. He can do whatever he wants, and we've got that with, I don't know, Mark Zuckerberg and other ones that already have shown a lot of stuff. And I know Mark Zuckerberg is a controversial figure, but let's give him the benefit of the doubt for this conversation. And last year, right before the stock price went up, and of course no one knows what stock price will do in the short term, but right before the stock price went up, the CEO was attributed, I don't know if it was 1 million or 2 million. It was 2 million. I'm not sure if one was planned and the other wasn't. 2 million options right before the stock price went up a lot. without any explanation. So of course he exerts a lot of power inside the board and inside the company. Why? So that's one small thing, and I reckon that it's small, but is still itching right now.
Like I said, it's not, no situation is ever perfect. In any kind of company you look at that had, like in the rear view mirror, had a very good price, there's some reason why everybody was saying it's wrong. So I'll bring up XPEL because I'm very familiar with it. It's really been my only investment for the past like 5 years. Being 2015 at the end of the year, they're hit with a lawsuit by 3M, a huge behemoth, multi-billion-dollar company, against this tiny little microcap company. Everybody looked at that time, saw the price go from whatever it was, two down to like 60 cents. The company could have gone, under. Easy. Could have happened. And at that time, you could have bought it at that, 60 cents. It's now more than $80. But, that's hindsight, right? But you look back at it then, at that specific time, I could have bought more at 60 cents. I waited until about like 90 later on when I saw that things were picking back up. But there was huge, that's a bunch of hair. That's lots of negative surrounding it. But that's anytime there's a company with an attractive valuation, there's generally something negative to look at it, negative perspective to see it. And right now we don't know if that's gonna be, like something that doesn't really matter, or an opportunity, right? That whatever the negative thing was actually an opportunity, or if it's actually something that's bad and that's, whatever the problem will persist. It's not really a short-term bump, but an actual long-term problem on your hands. So yeah, like I said, there's always something bad. And this company, I could be totally wrong about it. 100%. I'm betting that I will be wrong with it. But I could be right too. And, I'm based on what my experience, and I'm only just speaking personally, individually, based on what my experience directly and indirectly, it's something that I'm willing to bet on.
Yeah, and because the upside isn't just a two bagger or a three bagger. It has already been to like 10 or 20 bagger already, but it can be huge.
Right.
Yeah. Totally
right.
understand.
So yeah, it's when people bring up some things like the CFO, he's not the best CFO in the world, but we have to look at some of the don't miss the forest for the trees. From the top, you have to see what are the things that carry the most freight within a situation. And I think those incentives and the opportunity for agents and the way that they'll, I'm guessing, set up the business to, with incentives, with other areas, that being the lending side and all the other stuff. I think, probabilistically, I think that's a word, that it's going to work out, but it might not, because nobody ever knows, exactly what's going to happen. So that's why, like, even with my evaluation, anytime I'm trying to come up with something, I always try to look at it probabilistically, apply different weights to different scenarios, because I have no clue. And anybody trying to throw out, oh, it's going to be X number 5 years from now, it's BS, because even the company has no clue. eXp didn't know that they'd be at practically 60,000 agents this year, 2 years ago. So that's why I try to weight my different future forecast of what the business could be doing years from now, because It's
I have no doubt in my mind that these guys are going to keep growing like a beast. The guys I've talked to, the XP agents with whom I've talked to, are they were like fanatical, selling me the idea. This is amazing. They knew that I didn't want to become an agent, but they were almost saying, you got to come in and come be an agent with EXP. And then I saw them there. I've got a friend who has in São Paulo, Brazil, who owns
brokerage, right?
an agency or a brokerage, and he doesn't have it's in some ways it's similar. He doesn't have any offices. It's all done online because he didn't have money as well when he went from Portugal to there. And is now a big success in the luxury segment in São Paulo. And when I mentioned this to this EXP agent here in Portugal, she was like, please give me his number. I want to talk to him. I want to bring him in. She knew the opportunity, and they were like hound dogs. They're really, really wanting to grow the business. So the EXP is opening up countries like one per month, I guess. So I don't doubt for a second that the number of agents will grow massively for the next few quarters or years. Although the revenue might not follow exactly as that, because the United States, the houses are more expensive than in India and Mexico and Brazil and all of that. But I have no doubt in my mind that they're going to grow massively. And there's going to be some bumps along the way, of course. But I haven't yet made up my mind, but it's an amazing story, an amazing one. That's why I wanted to bring you in and talk to you about this, which leads me to, how can this idea be killed? How can it go wrong?
It could go wrong a couple of ways. Well, it's trying, when I've been doing any of my research, just trying to figure out ways that, okay, well, if the housing market crashes, if they have tons of debt, they're killed. But do they have tons of debt? No. Okay, what's another way? It's like iBuying could be like the wave. Like, it's really, I think it has to base around a few things. First, that technology overtakes totally. And that's, some type of, I don't know, marketplace or something just comes and makes it, you click to buy a house, right? In your head, that's what you have to have something like that where, okay, there's no agent involved at all. But if you really understand the laws within any kind of locality, at least within the US, there's tons of laws restricting, people doing all sorts of stuff. But people, this is one of the biggest transactions of their life. Okay. And they, that's a lot of money for them. So if they're buying a house, and with me personally, I create 3D tour floor plans, photos. So I would be the type of business that would be still doing okay if, everybody was just buying a house online. But still, walking virtually through a house, people still need that extra, seeing it. They need hand holding. There's a ton of process going within purchasing, selling a house. There's paperwork, there's liens, there's, inspections, there's this, that, and another thing. There's so much to it. And I think it's the same thing with, say, investing. So people, they, invest their money, ETFs, they usually have an investment advisor, right? Because most people don't really know what they're doing. An investment advisor hopefully should help them, get low cost, do well, plan for retirement, all that sort of stuff. And you have all of that technology coming in with the robotic portfolios, whatever. They rebalance, do all this stuff that investment advisors should be doing, not be doing, whatever. But there's still a huge portion of people who are just going to want the hand holding, because that's literally all it is. You're paying for somebody to hold your hand because you're going to freak out, or you're going to have a situation where you don't know what's going to happen. So although I see that, technology definitely will have a more integral part.
Let me interrupt you.
Yep.
I was 88% of the buyers in 2020, 88% of the buyers who purchased their home have done it through a real estate agent or broker, up from 69% in 2001. So it's actually going up, the number.
Thank you for that statistic. I did not know that, but I see it, literally every day when I do my business, my shoots. I talk with sellers or the agent. It's always going to, you need people. And I think we shouldn't discount the value that these entrepreneurs, provide to people, because the really good ones, they're worth a lot. They're worth a lot because they'll help you get through some really sticky situations. They'll help you get better prices. They'll help you do lots of different things. So technology could definitely change things up a lot. How it's going to change, don't know. Anybody who says they know, they have no clue what they're talking about. They're lying. So if you're going to bet with eXp, you're betting that agents will be a part of this, the situation for a while. Another thing, with any company, outright fraud. So are they doing something that is illegal? Are they boosting revenues more than should be necessary? Are they doing things that are seedy, that you could kind of see through the statements? And anytime you look at like Enron, you look at WorldCom, you look at all of the other frauds of the past, they're doing something to make it seem more profitable and bigger than it actually is. I don't know. Are they inflating their agent count? How I have no clue. But are they trying to, they had been unprofitable for a number of years prior to this past one where they were actually profitable. Are they doing something to capture the profits sooner than later or overstating? I can't see anything. Are they doing something, are they trying to make their CapEx seem like more of a cost? I don't know. Like, are they trying to, from my perspective, if you're trying to make it look better in the short term with trying to increase, this, that, and another, I just can't see. They don't have debt. The cash flow continues to go up. They still have crazy amounts of non-cash stock comp, but they're still able to, it seems like they're doing things to actually make it seem like it's less attractive, because now they're showing the revenues being all of the commission that they're getting, and then the cost of that being, the commission split to agents is really high. So it looks like optically like the lowest margin company, looks like a retailer practically, right? Teeny tiny margins. So it doesn't seem like they're doing things that would make it look better than it actually is. There actually seems like they're trying to make it look like how it is, or maybe even not as good as how it actually is. And people have to really understand the company that, look at cash flows to really see that this company, what it's done in the past. And then you'll start to see, as they work more on getting that capture rate of ancillary services and the other parts of the business going, that the margins are actually better and they're gap positive. So it's something that you really have to peel the onion to see that it's actually something interesting. It's not like thrown in your face that, oh, we're the greatest company in the world, but you're really not. So yeah, outright fraud would be another thing. What's another thing that could,
Could it be that there's someone, and I know that that's already a reality, but there's some other company offering better terms to the agents, and the agents will shift, will go to the best, to the greener pasture, right?
Well, there's always going to be agents that are, think of it like this. In any kind of demographic, there's always somebody who's looking for the lowest price, right? Then you have people a majority of people, probably 95% are looking for good price and absolutely greatest value for your money, right? And I think that there's always going to be a small portion who are just looking for the absolute lowest, best commission, and that's it. They don't care about anything else. But I think in terms of that, like I said, with this type of business, I think the barriers to entry, giving a better commission split, giving the same revenue share or even better, or giving stock options, people can copy that, but it's the barriers to scale. So getting everybody and their brother and sister and everybody in Sao Paulo to start jumping on board with the company, that comes with, okay, now you have to have big players come into your company to give you credibility. You have so many other factors that are a little less nuanced that are going to make it more difficult for you to go from, 10 agents to 1,000 to 60 now and continue to keep growing, and also do it in a profitable way. So I think when they've created this business, they really sat down and thought, okay, what is the most amount of that we can give? And eventually, once we reach a certain scale amount, we're going to start getting profitable. And I think they found a sweet spot in terms
They've
of
actually course corrected the 20% discount on the equity.
they've been iterating. They've been iterating
Yep.
because nobody knows exactly what's going to happen in the future, but they've iterated to a point, and iterating is a good thing. That's showing that you're learning, you're growing to a point where you have, like I said, you're giving is about as most as you can give for what you're getting, and doing it in a profitable fashion, because it gets to a slippery slope. Now you get to a point where you're like, okay, well, we're just going to give you the agent 100%, and then we're going to get whatever transaction fee. But then you really have to reach a big scale to start seeing any kind of benefits profitably. So that's why I say it's really easy to set up. I'm sure anybody could set up a cloud brokerage, right? Maybe not as easy as, setting up a YouTube channel. But for them to reach a huge size and continue to keep up with that crazy growth, that would be difficult, very difficult.
Well, one of the first things that came to my mind was, what if the 2.5% or 3% that you charge, that these brokers charge the sellers, would go down? How would it hurt the whole company, the profitability? And then I've noticed that there's Redfin that charges, and other companies that charge much lower fees or fixed fees. From a buyer's perspective or a seller's perspective, from the end customer, what makes an end customer give 2.5% or 3% of a house instead of a fixed, much lower fee to a company?
It's a very good question. Few things. So the real estate industry is hugely all about relationships. And so when you're trying to list your house, it's like, who do I know? It's rarely has anything to do with brand. All the brand kind of mindset would be on the local level. Just who the person doesn't really matter what local brokerage, traditional brokerage, big company, Remax. Nobody cares about that crap. All they generally care about is the relationship they might have with a real estate agent and what they think that person can do for them. Okay, so it's a hugely relationship-driven business. And so for somebody I think when it comes to the split factor and lower prices, I think giving the real estate agent more money, split-wise, allows them to be competitive. So they are then given the chance to lower their price accordingly based on their situation. So with a Redfin, they're upfront just saying, okay, we're just cheaper. If you dig a bit deeper in terms of Redfin and experiences people have had, there's good experience, there's bad experience. But what's the mix? Is it more bad or is it more good? And from what I've seen is because agents within the Redfin model are, they get lots of work. Okay. So that's their whole model, is trying to have agents and then work them as much as possible. That's how they can get better margins and pay them as least as they can per the transactions that they're doing. There's like a churn and burn. And so these agents are just trying to work on efficiency as much as possible. So the service component isn't a hugely important thing. And for a person who's trying to buy or sell, they're looking for service, right? Majority of people, not everybody. Some people just want the cheapest price, like I said. So with an eXp, you're given a better commission split. You're also given the option, if need be, to set your commission rate, right? Because eXp, they know that there's other discount brokerages like Redfin, who knows what else, Fathom, or wherever, that allows them to start setting their standards for their own needs or for per transaction. Because maybe a real estate agent comes in contact with somebody that just comes across as being cheap. Maybe that agent just needs it, so they'll lower the price down, but still get paid maybe as much as they were getting paid at a traditional brokerage. So I think the eXp, while they don't send off the message like, okay, we're everything is 1.5%, I think that they're giving the agent the ability to choose, based on situationally, whether to, if they know this is going to be really hard sell, they're going to have to put a lot of hours into it. Might as well keep the 3% as their contracted amount, and then maybe it might be something that could flip quicker. It's just allowing them to choose what to do. And so I think that over time you'll also see maybe eXp gets to a certain point where growth is slowing a little bit. So maybe then they start kicking in okay, we need to really market that we can do less, still bring on agents from other places, from the traditional brokers, and we'll still pay them the same technically. We might have a lower fee. And that's why I gave the example between the Redfin agent and the eXp agent doing a similar amount of transactions based on the same 1.5% fee, which would be the same between them, but it's lower than most agents get. And then seeing that the eXp agent's going to get way more, based on that volume.
You've mentioned the Remax, and I've talked to an owner of 10 Remax agencies here in Portugal, and when I've talked about the eXp model, she was like, "Wow, but my stores, especially 2 of them here in Lisbon, they're like a bait or clients love them because when they come in, they see that there's a structure, there's someone behind, there's a bigger company behind. You don't have this." And I think they have some kind of how do you say, a deal with Regis. How do you say it?
Regis.
So when you really need to close a deal or to sign something, you go to Regis. And it's interesting how, from my understanding, the eXp agents are overly enthusiastic, and the traditional brokers, brick and mortar brokerage, are overly skeptical, like, no, that won't work, and it's working, right? So right. It's like it's amazing.
So one thing to point out before you go on to your next point, Manuel, is that what's interesting with these, as I keep saying, like additive sum relationships or businesses or teams or something like that, they get cultish. They do. Any of the companies that I've really come across, they are able to acquire, pretty good talent, but there's always a good portion of people who get into the company, like a Chick-fil-A, and just see like, what, like, these people are like just like too crazy, or like Quick Trip, or like Nucor. Like there's people, the people who are there, they love it, and they love it because they're treated well, financially treated well. They're treated like a human being or an adult, because most companies will treat their people, who are adults, like kids. Like, you can't do this, you can't do that. You come up with like, I have a problem, or you have like a situation where you want to give some feedback which could help the company, and they're like, they shoot it down immediately. And then those people have all of this potential that's unkempt and not harnessed. And then if they go into a company that allows them to thrive, they just love it. And I think that a lot of people might see that kind of cultiness to it, and they might just be that cohort of people that says like, oh, well, it's not for me. Well, it's not for everybody. But if you get in a situation like that, somebody who treats you like you should be treated, you really, vouch for it as much as you can.
I've taken the clue from you to, you've replied to someone on Twitter to go to the real estate forums and see what agents are saying to each other and all of that.
Yeah.
And I went down that rabbit hole, and there's a lot of opinions for not just for eXp, but for all the brokerages. There's different models, different people, different models that suit different people.
Right.
They don't need to be exactly worse or better than the others. They're just different. And one thing that I've noticed is that there's some things that I still gotta look into it, because when you see the financials for this business, they're actually not easy to understand how they treat the share-based compensation. One type of compensation is treated in one way, the other one is treated in another way. This is one of those companies that for right now, and I'm just still on this early stage of the due diligence, is I can't really understand their financials. I'll get there, I hope, but I'm still a little bit cautious on that side. And one thing that I've noticed, and there's this whole thing about, no, the agents want equity and all of that. So far, that hasn't been my impression, because first of all, the company tells us that 25% of the agents choose the 5% equity compensation instead of choosing cash. And I believe that it would be great to have a chart, because when the stock price goes up, I would say that they will, it's like in a fund, right? In the stock market, people will want it, and when the stock comes down, people won't want it, which is kind of interesting. This might lead to some stock rights. It's interesting. And I've one of the agents to whom I've talked to, it just didn't care about the equity compensation, and I was like, dude, you're saying all of this amazing thing about the company. Why not? It's just that he doesn't understand stocks, so he chooses not to own the stock.
Yeah, some people, it's what they understand, what they want. Everybody's different. I think the bigger players, they'll really understand it. They want to have, they're probably investing in other places, and so giving them the option to now do this, but also be an extra lever or fuel on the fire for their efforts. I think they would understand. Some of the smaller people who are just starting, younger, they probably don't know, don't care, but the other portions still are effective for them. Higher commission split, revenue share, all that type of stuff is more readily understandable for their situation. Or there might just be a person who, like, this business model isn't for, and they might choose a different place, which is, their choice, and good for them. So, and I think even that's the same with us investors as well. It's like, there's been a couple of people who have reached out to me and asking questions, and I try to do the best that I can, and providing quality feedback as well. And for some people, they're still like, just like, I don't get it. Well, maybe it's not, where some people should be. Like, it's something that's, like I said, it's within my wheelhouse, with my kind of qualitative things that I look for. And so once I started looking, after a little bit, I boom, click. And I think for other people, it just might not be,
That's
your
one of those.
pitch.
Yeah, exactly. One of those things that they
Right.
don't tell you is that investing is highly personal,
Huge.
right? And Ian writes a lot about that, about the conviction to hold. And
Right.
you've got to have the conviction to hold. You got to understand the business, like the business, be comfortable with it. And not everyone likes the same businesses, of course, and understand the same business,
Right.
of course.
Exactly. And so for somebody to gather a lot of conviction, you have to. With me, it has to hit me square in the face, right between the eyes. I have to have that moment, and when I actually get it, because every time that I've been in a company where that hasn't happened, I haven't had the conviction to hold. I haven't had, or it's just been a shitty investment, and I haven't done well with it. So it's either or. But the ones that have done well for me, there's been a couple. I swear, it's boom right here. It hit me right between the eyes, and the times that it's hit me between the eyes and I didn't load up, I was very sorry. So
You regretted it.
yeah, I regretted it. And so I have to understand that's how I work. And this is one that's hit me between the eyes. And it could potentially be one that doesn't do well, but I have the conviction.
Like all of them.
Right. Yeah. I have the conviction to, potentially see it out, ride a roller coaster. I remember XPEL went down literally like 90% from its high. From like 330 to like 60 cents, like a ridiculous amount, like more than 80% for like more than a week. And then just being able to hold on to something and still, have your wherewithal, your head on your shoulders. It's hard. And so I think if this is a company that doesn't hit you square in the eyes, pass. Just
Sean, we're reaching the end of our conversation. I would, first of all, let me encourage you to keep writing. I receive your newsletter every week, the WoodShed, notes from the WoodShed. Is that it? Is that the name?
That should be. I just call it the WoodShed.
The WoodShed. And I would like you to talk about what else you're doing. So the WoodShed, I highly recommend people to subscribe to the newsletter. You also have Immersion Factory, right?
Yeah, that's my real estate photography business. Currently, it's just me right now. It's been growing a lot. Like I'm probably 160% up from last year in terms of what business I'm doing. So that's been going well. And it's, again, I'm basing a lot of everything that I'm operating on based on the Intelligent Fanatics principles that I've come about with Ian Castle and in the books that we've written. So the first one, second one, both available on Amazon. And there's another one with Indian Intelligent Fanatics that we published, written by Rohit Poti and Pooja Bula. And they did a wonderful job looking at that. So I'm just trying to operationally utilize all the experience that I've gathered directly and indirectly and try to grow. I'm currently in the midst of growing to a new location, onboarding a good friend of mine, but that'll take a little bit. I'm trying to grow stepwise, baby steps, but in a very thoughtful and methodical fashion. So that's not Intelligent Fanatics, but Immersion Factory. You notice the IF. So I wanted to keep it. So Intelligent Fanatics, the website didn't do as well as I hoped, but I said, well, how about
I was a subscriber.
Well, sorry, we had to take stuff off, but I've been slowly kind of rebuilding stuff in a free fashion with the WoodShed. So that's what I thought would be useful for you guys who thought was a good idea to do an Intelligent Fanatics. Anyway, so Immersion Factory, that's what I do there. So I created a business for doing this stuff. It's called Inspire Wall Art. 3D wall art. Like I said, once my business dies down a little bit and fall and winter, I think I'll officially launch that. I think there's a cool 3D tour that I did of my WoodShed where you can actually buy these pieces of art through Shopify that I'll launch eventually. I think that's going to be a cool
You gotta
thing.
give me all those links so I can put them in the description.
Yeah, we'll do. And then, so that's pretty much those businesses. And yeah, the WoodShed, I'm just trying to continually work on creating that qualitative lens for my investing, which has been on, the back burner for a long time as I build my business, but mainly just for me to, learn and acquire the leadership and cultural aspects to help my business grow. And I just really like studying greatness, whether it be, like I said, basketball, football, biology for all places, or really anywhere, and just see how the best of a certain niche succeed and how I can apply those to other, my current investing, business, or life, really. Because I think it's really, we have a very limited time on this earth, and I want to be as most efficient as possible with leading a life that's not only useful for me, my family, but to everybody that's, within my orbit, because, it's just, again, additive sum relationship. And I think I'm not doing it really now for money, with my newsletter. I'm just doing it to, help my thought process, but also, potentially meet individuals like yourself who are very smart and very, just try to continually create positive feedback loops in my life.
I love it, and I encourage you to keep going at it. Keep doing it.
Unfortunately, man, I'll be doing very little investment, ideas.
It only takes one, right?
It only takes one. Yes, it only takes one, and you better hold on to that one with your whole life, because otherwise you'll see yourself passing up on 10x's, multiple 10x's, and that's not fun. That's not fun at all.
Sean, great to have you here. Thank you very much for this conversation.
Thank you.
I hope you'll be back when you have a new idea, when you find
idea. We're gonna have I'm gonna have lots of white hair next time.
It doesn't matter.
Well, maybe then we can do a post-mortem on the previous ideas, and we'll see if I'm right or I'm horribly wrong, and I might be wrong.
That's a great idea. Thank you very much, Sean.